Alright, I wanted to show you a quick thing that you can potentially use to add some dirt and grime into your textures relatively easily. So in this case, I just have a piano, which I totally stole from one of you guys. Not my model. And I just put this random wood texture I found on the internet. I pretty much just did a crap job. It had nice UVs on it, I just wanted like one tile to make these easier. So anyway, I just applied one wood texture over the entire thing, including the keys. And if you notice, like in a lot of these areas here, like it looks a little bit flat, and that's not the fault of the model so much as the existing texturing. So I wanted to show you guys, again, just a quick and easy way to kind of go back in and add a little bit of grime to your textures. So I'm just going to go in and add an Arnold Ambient Occlusion node. If I play this, you will notice that it gives me pretty much this. So I'm just going to set this to render only the piano. And I'm going to say maybe I want... maybe I want this to be more aggressive. Something. It's not helpful. Alright. So what you can do, like if you are having trouble maybe getting, like, I can't quite get the values I want, so what I'm actually going to do is just assign this this is again my janky way to do it, a surface shader. These are not affected by light at all. I am going to go into my hypershade. I'm going to stop watching this for a second. So I'm just going to grab my crappy surface shader, dump that right down here, and then take that ambient occlusion, and I'm going to pipe this through a ramp. And this is ramp texture if you're in here. So I'm just going to be like, great, give me out color R into my V chord, and out color R into, out color, all of out color into out color. So now whatever, the surface shader should display whatever is being kicked out of your ambient occlusion node. A little bit of like sketchy procedural texturing. Alright, so I'm gonna run back into my hypershade. And in this case, I feel like I've kind of done all that I can with the ambient occlusion node, so I'm gonna go in and noodle with this ramp. In this case, I kind of want more black in here, so I'm gonna be like, ah ha ha, excellent. That'll really punch down some of the areas in there. For some reason, half the time when I do this, it seems to just like breakish my ambient occlusion node, but I mean, you can see, so we have some like pretty aggressive, like debatably gross looking dark highlights in here. I'm going to leave this like pretty aggressive like this, because that's in this case kind of what I want. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually bake this to a file texture. So the same way that we overlaid the wireframe over, it looks so weird, same way that we overlaid the wireframe over the render, it's pretty much a similar process. So I'm going to go to my Arnold tab, utilities, and render selection to texture. Can you put it in my images folder, source images folder? Hey, render. Great. Oh, fine. Great. And I'm going to do 48. Close enough. Cool. So I'm just going to render this, and usually it takes a few seconds, especially if it's like a more complex texture that you're doing. Basically what it's going to do is render this from all angles and create a UV texture that you can just apply to this and pretty much have it look exactly like it does in Maya. In this case, since it's a surface shader and those are not affected by light, it should just sort of hang out and be a black and white image of anywhere that there has been ambient occlusion in this. So this might take a while to render, so I'm just going to drop this here, and I will come back when it's done. Alright, so our render's done. You can see here it's just kicked out a little EXR file in the shape with the name of the object in it. So I'm just going to dump that into Photoshop on top of my texture. For some reason it did not scale it, so I'm just going to be like, alright, so you should totally make sure that it exports the correct size. But basically you have this. So if I scroll in, you can see half the stuff is just black because it's clipping through each other. But you can look in here and you see you have like a bunch of nice little like subtle details and stuff like that. So I am just going to rasterize this because I want to do a quick demo and I don't care if I'm being destructive. But I'll set this to, instead of normal, do multiply. And you can see that now you have basically a bunch of different sort of grime textures in here. I can, twiddle with the opacity a little bit to make it not just pure black, because that looks super gross. But basically, I'm just gonna really quick do a save and do wood 1. Why did I just save it as a PDF? That was stupid. Alright, wood 1 as a, I'm just gonna say PNG because I can. Great. The other thing I want to do really quick is I'm just gonna grab this and just go in with a brush. I'll pick something, and you can do this procedurally if you want. Like I could have done this with a noise texture, I just really didn't care enough. Just pick a brush, and I'm just gonna go in and maybe with like a lowish opacity and just be like, and you can kind of like, it's a bad example of a brush. But you can go in and just sort of like manually draw in like a little bit of crud in here, which I am not doing carefully or well at all. So like ideally this is something you'd pay a little bit more attention to what you were actually doing as you did it. But I'm just gonna say like, cool, that's good. That'll be enough variation to maybe make the grime feel a little bit like more broken up. I'll do save this and do wood 2 and save that also as a PNG. So now basically what we have is a slightly more customized map that we can go back here and throw into our scene. So here's my original wood texture. I'm just going to grab and remap 1. Haha, I love knowing what my file paths are. So you can see that now we actually have that ambient occlusion baked into that render there. So it should be like a bunch of more areas of darkness, sort of just hanging out on this thing. So if you want to add grime, it's a really, really good way to do that. In this case, if I grab the second one here, alright, I was hoping, so you can see it looks like I cut out a bunch of the areas of grime like right here. If I was paying more attention to what I was actually doing when I did this, you'd have a lot more control over, where the grime was. Like in here, it's like obviously really obnoxiously intense, but again, it's an interesting way to sort of go in and just like add texture. I could also use that if I wanted to for like a map for roughness, etc. So yeah, that's pretty much my shtick. I'm just gonna let this render, but this is basically, and then I'll do a comparison, I guess, of the two images. But this is like pretty much the point that I was getting at. So, and this is, again, the benefit of this is something you could take into Unity. You don't need to worry about like, oh no, this is, some weird procedural thing that I did in Maya and it's not going to transfer over. Which is why I am a fan. I've also saved this in a completely illogical place on my desktop. So, do with that as you will. But yeah, so again, we have this version versus this version, and you can already see, I changed the notebook green's actually more or less the same. But again, you can see it really helps sort of bring out the details in this model, especially like right here along this molding. You get a lot more like little bit of grime in there. You can really see that this little lip is here compared to right here. This thing has way more definition. So it is a good way to sort of, again, just like kick up your renders to a little bit more of an interesting result.